And finally, we have the World Economic Forum, which kicked off last week online rather than in the Alpine Swiss town of Davos, of which it's named after. Now, the WEF is run by this man, Mr. Klaus Schwab. He looks a bit like a James Bond villain, and he has taken it upon himself to unite all of the politicians and billionaires and thought leaders and movie stars to this little village with an aim to solve all of the world's problems. Problems, I would say, that many of these people's companies and the politicians' policies are directly responsible to. This is basically a highly globalist organization. They believe that global problems require global solutions, and they are the people to provide those solutions. They are behind the narrative of the Great Reset, Build Back Better, stakeholder capitalism, which for those of you that haven't heard of it, it is a refashioning of the kind of ideas that underpin Western capitalism, which is that corporations are working for their owners, the shareholders. This would adjust that to forcing corporations to work for its wider stakeholders, not shareholders. Stakeholders being the community, employees, people who work, people who own it, basically everybody around that business. And this sounds really nice until you realize that the reality of that would be that the government starts taking board seats and equity in companies over a certain employee threshold. So yeah, it is a kind of techno-socialism that the WEF is pushing. And one of their pet hates is, of course, Bitcoin. Now, the WEF is obsessed with climate change, and it's probably one of their biggest tools in their bag to achieve their globalist aims. Through ESG and other mechanisms, they're using climate change to suck up power from the nation states and centralize it in a global body with an aim to fix climate change. Now, the WEF has become quite a bit more famous during the pandemic because conspiracy theories about the WEF and Davos abound, and some have more merit than others, but you can get a good idea about what this organization wants just from looking at the stuff they publish themselves. There was a very famous article with the title, "It's 2030, I own nothing, I have no privacy, and I've never been happier." It says a lot about the kind of future they're trying to bring in. But anyway, back to Bitcoin. The WEF hate Bitcoin and are always attacking on it for its environmental credentials. I don't think they really care about that. What they do care, for the same reason that Bitcoin's anathema to the regimes in Russia and China, everything the WEF does is all about centralization. And all Bitcoin can do is promote decentralization. It's like oil and water. They're just not going to mix. And of course, just like with China, the WEF pushing forward their central bank digital currencies. So they're not going to want a free, hard, decentralized money undermining that. Now, as I say, the WEF attack Bitcoin every year, and this year is no different. In this year's report, they found a professor, a Mr. Pete Howson, senior lecturer in international development at Northumbria University, not one of Britain's top institutions, I might add, has said in 2022 it is likely to see stronger public opposition to Bitcoin on environmental grounds, which could force regulators to act more decisively. And they've pulled up a YouGov poll. Now, YouGov have lost a lot of credibility for me during the health crisis we've had over the last 2 years. They published a lot of very suspect poll data that would suggest there's a huge amount of public support for even more strict lockdown measures. And you try and find people that would be in favor of closing nightclubs forever, as an example, and you just can't find them. So I think this is another case of that, which is saying for the over 35s, between 40 and 60% of people would be in favor of an outright ban of cryptocurrencies on environmental grounds. Now, I don't buy this for a second, but what is important is that this kind of data, this kind of polling is used to justify future policy. Now, the British might not be what they were, but they're certainly not this authoritarian. There's no way 40 or 50% of people would just ban cryptocurrencies because it's bad for the environment. So yeah, I mean, I don't think that this data is true, but certainly something to keep an eye on. Now, Lynn Alden, one of my favorite analysts, has posted a tweet on this very subject, on this very report, in fact, and a report from 2017 that ended up not being true. Fact check. Bitcoin consumes a small fraction of 1% of global power today, compared to the WEF's 2017 statement that it would consume all of it by now. A lot of these estimates and articles come from people who don't understand how Bitcoin works. And I think that's correct. A lot of people don't understand how Bitcoin works. They certainly don't understand how the mining works. They don't understand the possibilities for Bitcoin to incentivize cheap power productions in places that are, you know, abundant with energy, but have sparse people to send their energy to, like Northern Canada, Alberta, Inner Mongolia, for instance. But they're not going to get this information because the people that control the news and the information that they get are opposed to Bitcoin because it undermines their plans. So yeah, the environmental FUD is an attack on the network, and it's up to us, the community, to defend the network by educating people.
What the hell I'm trying to say? Cellophane will light the way. No more stupid alibis. Only ends up someone cries.